Well, as I mentioned this morning, we had a theme today, and our theme was Thanksgiving. Since Thursday is Thanksgiving, I wanted to keep a mind frame and go with that idea. And we looked at this morning Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 8 in our Bible class and talked about some things there and the understanding of not only Thanksgiving, but some other ideas that we have as Christians. As this morning we got into our lesson, we talked about Thanksgiving and what we have to be thankful for from God. And this evening I just want to give the understanding of us giving thanks to God. And there are two verses I want to look at specifically. Psalm 105 verse 1 and Psalm 107 verse 1. And then we're going to make some quick comments, and then the evening will be yours. Psalm 105 verse 1 says, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the people." Psalm 107 verse 1 says, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever." There's a song that we sing, or we sang as in our youth groups. I know that it's in other books and in some other areas, and you'll hear me every now and then sing it, and it says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever." I just want us to think about and to understand some of the thoughts and concepts that we have as we look at what it means to give thanks to God. And think about these ideas, okay? From Psalm 105 verse 1, it says, "Make his deeds known." So, think about what that means. It means basically it's telling us we need to be talking about, we need to be showing, we need to be practicing the things that God has given. It says, "Sing to him." When we come in together and you think about this, we just got done singing some songs of praises. When we sing our songs of praises, they ought to be designed to go to God. I had a time where we have some songs in our songbook I disagree with. I disagree with the way they're written. I disagree with some of the messages that they can give. And I try and of that to, even though they're there and even though we have people that will lead those songs, I still have a time where you may hear me just drop off in an entire verse because I just have a hard time singing that verse. And I was talking to an individual one time, and this was many years back, and we were discussing, and his term was, "Oh, well, that's just poetic justice." And I may have told y'all about this statement, but poetic justice does not, or poetic license, that's right, thank you. Poetic license is not a reason to be unscriptural in our songs to God. And the point I made to him is, well, if I got up and I used poetic license in my sermon, would it make it right? And you'll say amen at the end of it? He's like, well, no. And I said, then how can we sing a song to God and say that? It does not work. When we sing, we're singing to God, and we need to remember that. He says to speak of his wonders and to glory in his name. Think about the wonders that God, we talked about creation this morning. We talked about the understanding that we have of God created everything. Just think about those thoughts for just a second and the wonders that we have. Now, you and I have not traveled around the world and seen everything that's out there, but there are some things that are marvels that people look at. One of those marvels that we have is the Great Wall of China. Now, you came close to China, but you didn't get to walk on the wall. You didn't get to go into China to be able to do that, did you? But it's there, and it's an amazement in how that wall was built the way it is, the size it is, the majesty of it. And so it's one of what we call a great wonder. Well, that was man-made. But when we look at the wonders of God, we're talking about the things of the universe. We're talking about the things that we have in the oceans and various things that are there. It is so amazing. There was, I like every now and then going in and looking at various things, looking up various things, and some of the craziness that people have found in the waters of our world. And some divers came across this really weird fish one time, and they had to go in and do some research. And it really existed. When they showed the photo of it, and I wish I thought about putting this photo up, but they had showed this photo of it. And what was so interesting about that photo was, you're looking at that fish going, there's no way that really exists. But then when you go in and do research on it, you find that it does. And that was God. God created these things. God made these wonders that people look at. When we stand at the point over in Chattanooga and you can see 7 different states from Chattanooga, from that lookout point, that says a lot. Think about the majesty of what God has done, the glory that He has and what He deserves. It talks about seeking the Lord. Seeking the Lord is something that you and I need to do. It's something that you and I need to understand. Because seeking God is not one of those situations where, okay, I'm going to do it today, but tomorrow I may do it. Seeking God is being and doing and living the way we need to do, be, and live, so that God is seen in everything that we do. We need to seek God because it's important. There's also something to note about this psalm in Psalm 105. This psalm was for Israel. But if you read through it, not only was it for Israel, but we can see the need that you and I have in trying to understand it and utilize it in our lives today. He is the Lord our God, and it says His judgments are in all the earth. When the final judgment occurs, it's not going to be a localized judgment. It's going to be a universal judgment. When God judges the earth, it's going to be over. It's done. And everything's going to be destroyed. It is a full-out judgment. And we need to understand that. He is Lord. He is God. And we need to understand as well. In Psalm 107, in verse 1, we mentioned just a second ago, give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. Okay? His loving kindness is everlasting. It's not just a setup here. It's not just, oh, well, I'm going to be okay with these people and I'm not here. His love is everlasting. It's from generation to generation. It's for every human being on the face of the earth. His love is that great. And I mentioned this morning. Although there are those that will come in and they'll say, oh, well, God must not be that God that everybody thinks, because look at all the bad things that happen to people today. The bad things happen because the bad things happen, not because God allowed this catastrophe to take place. God didn't allow these earthquakes and these tsunamis. God didn't allow these things, or I shouldn't say allow. God didn't do these things, but God did allow them. Why? Because it is upon man to understand who He is. Could God stop these things? Most assuredly. But that's not what God's about. God is about us, and we can go back up to back over to Psalm 105 for just a second. God is about us seeking Him, not Him seeking us. And so we need to understand these things. We need to realize just exactly who we are. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. If we are His people, if we are redeemed, if we are showing His will, then we need to show it. We need to allow people to know who we are. We need to allow people to understand who we are and what we do. Why are we the way we are? Because God said, this is my people. This is what I want from my people. And that is how you and I must live. God has redeemed us from the world. He's redeemed us from sin. He has cleansed us. He has made us whole. He has made us pure. And He has sanctified us. We are justified by Him. He has redeemed us. Gather from the lands, east and west, north and south. It doesn't matter. God wants everyone to understand His majesty, to understand who He is, to understand what He has done for mankind. You see, the issue comes down to the realization that man wants to be the center of attention. And we're not the center of attention. When we come to worship God, we don't come to worship God to make us look good. We come to worship God because He's God. We don't worship God because of how good we are. We worship God because of how good He is. God is the one that we are worshiping, not us. I hear people all the time say, oh, well, if God didn't give me this talent just to waste on it, He wanted me to use it for Him. And so I play. God doesn't want that. Yes, God has given us all talents in our life, but He wants us to use those talents properly and in understanding and in realization of who He is and what He desires. It's about God. It's about what He wants. It's about those things that He has done. And of course, Psalm 107 is about all the people. You know, you see, you have a set moment where God worked with just a single group of people, and then you had a set moment where God worked with everybody. And when you look at the church, and when you look at the first century, and you look at the ones that He used in that, it helps us to understand exactly who God is and what God expects of us. Give thanks to the Lord, all the people of the earth, because He is God. He is what we need. There is none better, none greater. And this is how you and I ought to see who we are and what God has done for us. And I ask if there's anything that we need to do to get ourselves right with God, let's not delay. Let's do what we need to do. Whatever the case may be, wherever you are in your life, let us help. All you have to do is step out and come forward right now while together we stand and sing this invitation song.